Very good evening to all of you. We talked about the first class of plant kingdom, that is algae, in our last lecture. Today we will talk about the next class, that is bryophytes. So anyone any doubt regarding algae?
No, ma'am.
Great. So then let's have a look into the next class, that is bryophytes. So bryophytes are known as the unique plant called as amphibian of plant kingdom. If you compare algae with bryophyte, the dependency on water is less in bryophytes. So they are one of the simple most land plant or terrestrial plant because they are the first step of plant kingdom towards land. Obviously, later on, many algae evolved and they also started staying in the land. But in plant kingdom, this is the first step towards being terrestrial. So what do we mean by bryophyte? Bryon word is coming from moss and phyton means plant. And if we look into a survey cited in 2018, 960 genera of bryophyte and 24,000 species, which is a huge number available around us. So bryophytes require water for their reproduction, but generally they are cosmopolitan in their distribution. Cosmopolitan means they can stay at every place, but they rarely grow in marine habitat because high salt content concentration is not allowing them to grow there. So unique thing about copper moss. So this copper moss is a bryophyte which grow in the soil which is rich in copper. It saves lots of money of excavation and digging and analysis of soil. So people who want to search and create a copper mine, they simply look into the growth of copper moss, and without any sophisticated gadget, they can predict that the area where copper moss is growing is rich in copper. So some bryophytes are truly aquatic. For example, you can see here some, one is aquatic. Some are growing in marshy areas. For example, peat moss, that is also called sphagnum. Have you ever heard about the types of coals? Anthracite, bituminous, peat. Types of coals.
No, ma'am.
In geography, generally it is part of syllabus. So peat moss is responsible for production of peat, which is a type of coal, but it's not a very sophisticated type of coal because it's not giving that much heat on burning. So it is majorly composed of the body of this peat moss, that is sphagnum. Now they can grow on tree trunks also. Some of them can grow on the surface of leaf. Some of them, on the contrary, are xerophytic bryophytes. That means they can live without water, but condition is same for reproduction, they require water. So you must be wondering, then how can they make arrangement of water in desert? In desert, with the minimum water, they adjust their reproduction and try to complete their whole reproduction process during the time when water is available in the desert. What are the land adaptations of bryophyte? From our point of view, it may be very simple that for a plant to migrate to land. What is special? When an organism is going towards terrestrial habitat, the first and foremost problem they face is from where they will get water then. If you are inside water, anytime water is available to you. If you are on land, from where you will get water. So this is the first problem. Second problem is when you are in a land, you are in contact of air, you will have chances of losing water. So what will it prevent you from loss of water? That is called dehydration or desiccation. So in our skin, we apply Vaseline petroleum jelly. Have you noticed during winter season our skin get dried?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So plants do not have shopping malls to go and buy. So what are adjustments made by them that we are going to study? First of all, they have root-like structures or rhizoids which will absorb water from soil. So the first thing that is the problem of gathering water is solved by these means. Next, apart from that, they have a coating of waterproof waxy substance on their surface so that water loss can be prevented. They have stomata-like structure for gaseous exchange. Why? Simple pore without control of opening and closing can release lots of water. So there should be a control over opening and closing of the pore. So to maintain that, to maintain this gaseous exchange, it is to be done like that. They have sex organ which is covered by a sterile jacket. So that sex organs can be protected too. The fertilization is internal so that no loss of zygote is taking place. So these are the reasons why bryophytes are called amphibians of plant kingdom, similar to the toad or frog. So what are the process on which they are dependent? First of all, for mature Antheridia dehiscence, dehiscence means breaking down of Antheridia, so that antherozoids or male reproductive spores can come out. The liberation of antherozoids, transfer of antherozoids from Antheridia to Archegonia. The means of transfer is water only. Opening of the archegonial neck so that antherozoids can go inside archegonia, and movement of flagellated antherozoids. Okay, so these are the things for which bryophytes require water. So without water, the life cycle of bryophyte is incomplete, so we call them amphibian. So what are the phases? In life cycle of bryophytes, the phases which are present are gametophytic and sporophytic phases. These phases are physically connected, and if you look into them, you can easily understand which part is sporophyte and which part is gametophyte. For example, in this picture, the green leafy part at the bottom, grass जैसा structure आपको जो दिख रहा है, that is gametophyte part, and this part with a knob at the end is the sporophyte. So the concept of gametophyte and sporophyte is clear to you people?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the role of gametophyte? This is the dominant phase. If sporophyte is not there, gametophyte can manage. It can go for photosynthesis. It can leave. Obviously, it will not be be able to reproduce, but it can save, be safe up to some time. So that is why we will say that gametophyte is independent, dominant, and in life cycle, if you consider the time, it is existing for most of the time. So that is why gametophyte is the dominant phase. Whereas if all gametophytes are destroyed, sporophytes will die instantly. Why? They don't have ability to absorb nutrient from soil or go for maximum photosynthesis or do other work. So for all these things, they are dependent on gametophyte and they go for asexual reproduction. So both of them in long run cannot survive without each other. But if you want to say for short run, gametophyte is independent and sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte. And in a life cycle, which is a cyclic pattern, all of them, both of them are coming in alternation. So we will learn first about gametophytic generation's characteristics. It is the conspicuous, that means prominent phase. It is long-lived phase. It is actually independent and autotrophic. The plant is generally fleshy. The differentiation of leaf, stem, root is absent. But in some higher bryophytes, it may have root-like, leaf-like, and stem-like structures. But as I mentioned, from external appearance, they may look outside like simple, but internally they can be different. So, in primitive form, the gametophyte is not that much differentiated. In advanced form, it can be differentiated into leaf-like, root-like structures. True roots are absent. In place of true roots, they have hair-like structure, which help in attaching themselves to the substratum as well as absorption. We call them rhizoids. Rhizoids may be unicellular or multicellular, and cell multicellular scale-like structures, which we think as leaf, are present. Okay. Now, the plant tissue, I guess you studied about plant tissue in grade 9 class.
Yes, ma'am.
You know that there
Yes.
are xylem, phloem, parenchyma. What are the different types of plant tissue? Anyone, if you can remember the names?
Ma'am, sclerenchyma,
Very good.
parenchyma.
Parenchyma. So none of these chymas are present here. Only parenchyma is present. So you can understand how undifferentiated it is. So every part of the body is made up of only parenchyma. No other types of tissues are present. They have thick wall and lignin is there, not present in their cell. Vascular tissue is completely absent, but division of labor is there. Photosynthesis and storage zone. This is the only division of labor. That means part which will go for photosynthesis, part which will go for storage. So now we will talk about the sporophyte description. So it is short-lived, less conspicuous, and it is totally dependent on gametophyte. So it has foot, seta, and capsule. This differentiation is external over here also. So this is how it looks. So before we go for actual process of reproduction, I want all of you to have a look into the video where we will know about the bryophytes. So any doubts, anyone regarding bryophytes?
No, ma'am.
So then let's have a look into the video. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Bryophytes. Bryophytes include the various mosses and liverworts that are found growing in moist shaded areas in the hills.
Unmute yourself.
Bryophytes are a small group of primitive plants which are commonly called amphibians of the plant kingdom. The word bryophyte, bryon, means moss, phyton means plant, was coined by Brown. The study of bryophytes is called bryology. They are characterized by following features. 1. Bryophytes chiefly occur in damp, shady, and humid localities. 2. The plant body is gametophyte because it produces gametes. It is thallus-like in primitive form, rhizia. In higher bryophytes, the plant body is differentiated into rhizoids, stem, and leaves. The stem is prostrate or erect and attached to the substratum by unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. They are organs of absorption and fixation. 3. Nutritionally, the plant body is independent and is the conspicuous phase of the life cycle. 4. The gametophytes lack vascular tissues, xylem and phloem. 5. Bryophytes reproduce vegetatively tubers, gemmy, protonema, etc. 6. Sexual reproduction is oogamous type. The sex organs are antheridia, male, and oogonia, female, which are always multicellular. 7. The male gametes are motile and biflagellate, called antherozoids, produced in male sex organ called antheridia. 8. The female sex organ is called archegonium, is flask-shaped having venter and long neck. The egg is retained within the archegonial venture so that fertilization is internal. 9. Presence of water is necessary for fertilization and the high sense of sex organs. Antherozoids are released into water where they come in contact with archegonium. 10. An antherozoid fuses with the egg to produce the zygote. The zygote produces multicellular body called sporophyte. The sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte for nutrition.
So this was a brief idea about the bryophytes. Okay, I thought let's have an introductory idea. Obviously, we will look upon the reproduction of bryophytes specially, and then we can specialize the view of like bryophyte reproduction video. I request all of you who doesn't want to speak can mute themselves. So, first thing that I wish to share with you about reproduction is They reproduce by vegetative and sexual both means. How vegetative reproduction takes place? It can be there by means of death and decay of the old part. That means in some specific case, if like the old part is detached from the main plant, each of these old part can produce a bryophyte, new bryophyte, rather to say. Okay. Now, fragmentation is another method. There are formation of adventitious branches, that means side branches. And if these branches are detached from the main plant, they produce gamma on gamma cup. For example, here, this is the distant picture, this is the close picture. You can see such cup-like structure and green ball-like structure. This cup-like structure is called gamma cup, and these balls are known as gamma or gemmules. So this is all about vegetative reproduction. Any doubts, anyone? Class?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Great. So in sexual reproduction, as you saw in the video, it is oogamous type of sexual reproduction. Sex organs are multicellular and they are obviously more complex than thallophytes. Especially, they have an external sterile covering on them, which is called jacket cell. So male sex organ is antheridia. Antheridia are globose and stalked. So this is the structure of antheridia with a stalk and globular head. We have sterile jacket cell around it. And inside the sterile jacket cell, sterile means they don't participate in reproduction. They have antherocytes. So from these antherocytes, the metamorphosis occur. Metamorphosis means they change their structure. And basically antherocytes are not having flagella. They get modified into antherozoids, which are having flagella. They have two flagellates and they can move and swim in the water. This is the female reproductive part, which is called archegonium. It is having a flask shape, and if you can closely look into it, this is having a part, this E part, this part, basal solen part. This is called venter. And this part is known as neck. Here also sterile jacket cells are there, and depending on variety, some cells are present in the neck region and it varies from 4 to 6. The number of neck canal cell varies from 4 to 6, and as they reside in neck, we call them neck canal cell. And one ventral canal cell is there, and obviously there will be one egg, which is this one. The star is the egg. This is the egg cell. So we will know about the role of ventral canal cell and neck canal cell gradually. So this is the microscopic image. I thought it would be nice. So this is antheridia. You can see that gametophyte. This part is gametophyte, and antheridium is having head-like structure and stalk. This is the antheridia, and you can see how antherozoids, that is the sperm, is released from it. This is the structure of archegonia. Each of these are archegonia, the dark colored structure. And if you want to look into archegonia, you can see the venter part and the neck part and the neck canal cell and ventral canal cell. Isn't the pictures nice, class?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, this part is quite difficult, but if you have good images and good videos, I will show you one video of reproduction of bryophyte. It is so vibrant, you will be able to understand it in a minute, actually. So water will be necessary for fertilization. So how the fertilization process is going on, we will see. Whenever the antheridia will mature, the jacket cell will disintegrate. That means jacket cell will break down. And this will liberate the antherozoids in the water. Now archegonia will also mature simultaneously. Neck canal cell and ventral canal cell will disintegrate. So that means if initial condition of female reproductive system was like this, where the egg cell was here, but the path of reaching to egg cell was protected by these neck canal cell and ventral canal cell. So once antheridia mature, these ventral canal cell and neck canal cell get disintegrated. So now what will happen? The antherozoid can easily reach to the egg cell. This is the egg cell. And this is the antherozoid. Okay. So once there is union of antherozoid, which is N, and egg cell, which is N, there will be production of a zygote, which will be diploid, that is 2N. So let's look further. After fertilization, from zygote, the plant that is developed is sporophyte. Okay. So zygote is the first stage. Then there will be division, and zygote do not rest much. It is mitotically divided to form the sporophytic generation. So can you tell me sporophyte will be haploid or diploid, beta? If zygote is producing sporophyte by mitosis division, yes, Parth?
Diploid.
Very good. So it will be diploid. Okay. And here the embryo development is exosporic. That means it is in the open environment. And embryo actually develop into the venter of archegonium. And sporophyte is very simple. It has rhizoid, stem and leaf, that is foot capsule seta. It is dependent on gametophyte, so this part are already covered. But sporophyte is having sporogenous tissue. So if you closely look into sporophyte, it has structure somewhat like this. So this is foot. This part is called seta. And this is called capsule. So if you remove this capsule, you will be see it is having a spore sac inside which sporogenous tissue. Sporogenous is tissue which will produce spore. So this sporogenous tissue will produce the spore, and if you remove capsule, you can see that there is a structure which has sporogenous tissue which will produce the spore. If all spores present in the sporoporangium, that is this pouch, are same, we call them homosporous. When we call them homosporous, if all spores are same, we call them homosporous. Sometimes there are elaters, presence of elater. Now what is this elater? Elater mechanism is a spring mechanism. Consider below every spore there is a compressed spring-like structure, and this is covered by something. So the moment this external covering is open, the spring will expand and there will be a jerk, and due to that jerk, the spores are spreading in distant direction. Why this is required? Because beta, spore dispersal is very much important. अगर सारे plants एक ही area में grow होंगे, तो then there will be competition between them for food, light and everything. So none of them can grow good. So that's why either there will be presence of elater or there may be dispersal via wind. Now, all these spores will germinate to form the gametophyte. So, in some cases, if the bryophyte is of a higher type, between the spore and gametophyte, there is a stage which is called protonema stage. But it is present in some bryophyte, it is absent in some bryophyte. So this is how you can see calyptra, capsule, inside capsule there will be spores. This is operculum, which is the covering of the capsule. You can see how spores are released. From these spores there will be production of protonema. From this protonema there will be production of gametophyte. So this is how sporophyte and gametophytic relationship generations are connected to each other. Anyone, any doubt, beta?
No, ma'am.
So let's have a look into the life cycle. I just want to talk about the different phases and I want you people to answer me. So here you can see this part is called sporophyte or gametophyte, beta. ये वाला part जो है. So
Sporophyte.
it is the sporophyte.
Sporophyte.
So you will tell me and I will label it. So sporophyte will be diploid or haploid?
Haploid.
It will be diploid. So spores will be produced, isn't it? So spores will be what? Haploid or diploid?
Haploid.
How?
Haploid.
How? So that means here there will be meiosis, you mean to say.
Yes, ma'am.
So now each spore will germinate to produce, this is what? Gametophyte or sporophyte? This is called protonema. This part is called protonema. Okay. Now this is male plant and female plant. So that means if it is producing two types of spore, one is giving rise to male, other giving rise to female, then we call such variety as heterosporous variety. So from them there will be egg and sperm. So they will be haploid and haploid according to you. And then these two will form the zygote. So this will be diploid and sporophyte again will be diploid. So in this generation, which phase is predominating, diploid or haploid, that I will ask you. And I will ask you whatever you predicted is correct or not. after I show you one video that will describe about the life cycle of bryophyte. So can we look into the video? Do you have any doubt regarding life cycle?
मैम जाइगोट्स तो मियोसिस प्रोसेस में नहीं जा सकते ना?
नहीं.
ओके मैम.
So that means this much part, or rather to say, in the life cycle, this much part is haploid, and this much part is diploid. Okay. So let's have a look into the life cycle of bryophyte. Anyone, any doubt regarding whatever we learned? It's an excellent video. I will reshare. Can we start?
Yes मैम.
Yes.
Forests are dominated by large plants that crowd one another in their competition for light. But far below on the forest floor, there is a group of tiny plants known as the mosses. With over 10,000 species, these plants thrive in many habitats. These moss plants form gametes and are therefore gametophytes. Moss gametophytes are haploid, containing only one set of chromosomes. Their small and compact form enables the stems to stay upright, while rhizoids anchor them to the soil. Moisture easily accumulates around the densely spaced stems. This often leaves a film of water on the leaves and on the stem tip. Hair-like growths called paraphyses help to hold the water around the stem tips. Some stem tips are male and contain reproductive structures called antheridia. These are complex organs consisting of many cells. Each is supported by a stalk. The upper portion consists of an outer protective jacket that surrounds a group of sperm cells. At the tip of a female plant, there are numerous reproductive structures known as archegonia. The top of each consists of a slender neck. The middle region contains a chamber called the venter. The base of the archegonium is attached to the moss stem by a stalk. An egg cell is formed inside the venter. Inside the neck, the breakdown of cells forms a central canal containing sperm attractant. A rain shower provides the ideal conditions for sperm release and their transfer to a female plant. Droplets of rainwater collect at the tips of the moss stems. Inside the drop of water at the tip of the male stem, the antheridia open. This releases cells containing sperm, which float up to the surface. Raindrops splash some of this water out of the male plant. Some splash drops contain sperm cells and fall onto the tip of a female stem. The sperm now escape from their surrounding membrane and use their flagella to move about in search of an egg. The archegonium now opens and releases the sperm attractant. The sperm swim towards the source of the attractant and into the opening. Once inside, they are guided down to the egg. The first sperm to arrive enters the egg cell. Fertilization is completed when the sperm and egg nuclei fuse, creating a diploid zygote. After fertilization, many changes take place on the female stem tip. At first, the zygote remains within the venter, where it forms an embryo. However, one end of the embryo soon grows out of the venter and into the female stem. This allows it to obtain water and nutrients from the female plant. The other end of the embryo grows upward. The venter expands to accommodate this growth, but eventually it is split in half. The embryo now forms a very long stalk or seta that lifts the top half of the venter up into the air. This results in a small diploid plant, the sporophyte, attached to the tip of the female stem. These female stems have all been fertilized and support sporophytes above them. The tip of each is covered by the torn venter, or calyptera. This soon falls away, exposing a capsule, or sporangium. The capsule contains fertile tissue consisting of sporocytes. Inside the nucleus of each sporocyte, there are two sets of chromosomes. The nucleus divides by the process of meiosis, forming 4 haploid nuclei. Thin walls now form around each nucleus, resulting in a cluster of 4 cells, known as the tetrad. A deposit of sporopollenin produces cells with thick, resistant walls, called spores. As the spores are forming, the capsule dries out and hardens. Soon the lid or operculum falls away, revealing a ring of fine teeth called the peristome. These surround an opening in the capsule. As they dry out, they bend backwards, allowing the spores to escape. A light breeze is all it takes to carry the spores away from the parent plant. Spores carried by the wind may land on an exposed surface. After rain, the spore cell absorbs water and germinates. But instead of growing into a new moss plant, it forms a branch filamentous protonema. However, after a period of growth, some of the protonema form buds. Each bud will proceed to grow into a new leafy gametophyte. Spores then enable mosses to spread and colonize new areas, often some distance from the parent plant. Using both gametes and spores, these unassuming members of the plant kingdom quietly proceed to thrive and multiply. They have successfully spread from polar regions to the tropics and are equally at home in our cities or in the countryside. Perhaps a key to their success is their small size. Perhaps it is due to their ancient lineage, going back more than 400 million years, to a time when plants were first colonizing the land. Whatever the reason, these tough yet attractive opportunists hold many surprises for the interested observer.
So how was the video? Class?
Nice. It was nice.
It was good.
Great animation, no? As if we can really see the we can really see the reproduction of moss, isn't it? So we will talk shortly
Yes, ma'am.
on the classification. I guess no one is having any doubts regarding life cycle and reproduction. But if you are, beta, feel free to ask me. Any doubts, anyone?
Ma'am?
Yes, beta.
मैम जो स्पोरोफाइट्स होते हैं वही गैमेटोफाइट्स में जाके रिप्रोड्यूस करेंगे या जो स्पोरोफाइट्स है वो असेक्सुअल स्पोर्स बनाएंगे?
बेटा जो स्पोरोफाइट है वो जो स्पोर बनाएंगे उसमें से गैमेटोफाइट बनेंगे और गैमेटोफाइट्स के गैमेट्स मिलके जो जाइगोट बनाएंगे उसमें से स्पोरोफाइट बनेंगे.
ओके मैम.
So if you look into the yes बेटा.
मैम वो oogamnium टाइप का वो जो रिप्रोडक्शन था वो मतलब सिर्फ फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गन ही इन्वॉल्व होगा ऐसा कुछ?
I told you isogamy, anisogamy, ugamy.
हाँ वो पता है.
So that's it, oogamous type of reproduction.
ओके मैम.
That means big non-motile female gamete and many small motile male gametes. We have oogamous type of reproduction.
Okay, ma'am. Got it. Thank you.
Got it. Chalo. Now, if we wish to classify bryophytes, they can be classified into these three types, that is mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. This classification part is not actually mentioned in your CBSE syllabus, but in entrance they use words, so I thought let's discuss about it so that you have basic idea. So mosses are the non-vascular type of bryophytes, and they have more grass-like appearance. Okay, for example, Funaria. Funaria is a type of moss, and it is having grass-like appearance. If you talk about moss, this has two stages. One is protonema stage, which is leafy stage, that is produced from the spores created by sporophyte, and then this protonema stage will be converted into leafy stage, which has lot many scale leaves present in them. So protonema stage will be a small stage from which the actual gametophytic stage, that is leafy stage, is produced. So you can see this is the gametophyte and the red part is the sporophyte. They are so tiny, sometimes when we walk on them, we don't even understand that we are crushing thousands of plants beneath our foot. Now, these are also some examples of mosses. You can see how they are growing on the surface of stone or on the surface of rock or in the soil also. This is the sphagnum or peat moss. This is how moss, when they die, their body is responsible for enriching the, I can say, enriching the organic part in the soil or humus part in the soil. This is another moss which is slightly bigger in size. It is called Polytrichum. Colorful they are really. Now we will talk about the liverwort. They are more two-dimensional. So these are the liverwort. You can see they are comparatively flat. So their thallus is dorsiventral. Dorsiventral means upper surface is having different structure because they have such circular gamma cups present in them, and gamma is the means of asexual reproduction for them. At the lower back, they have hair-like rhizoids, and they have leaf-like structures like this. So these are liverwort. So you can see that this is the organized structure. This is the enlarged view of gamma cup. As they have liver-shaped thallus, that's why they are called liverwort. So this is how they look. The lower part is gametophyte, and the upper part, which is colorful, is the sporophyte. Last is the hornwort. They are called hornwort because they are having the horn-like projections out of their gametophyte. Horn sing jasa. Okay. So these are different horn phytes. You can see that the sporophytes are having horn-like structure. That's why they are called hornworts. Bryophytes are around us, and we gather 1,000 separate economic importance from them. We studied about economic importance of algae, but if you compare the economic importance of bryophytes, they are not least. First and most important thing is they are used for soil conditioning. What do we mean by soil conditioning? They maintain the texture of soil, pH of soil. They increase the water holding capacity of the soil. As they are intricately associated with soil, they make sure the soil particles are loose, and that increase the aeration of the soil. If in a soil aeration is not there, the plant which is surviving inside cannot breathe, especially the root. And if root cannot breathe, there are chances of death of the root cells. And you know, root is the most important part of the plant. One of the most, rather to say. So obviously, if roots are dying, that means the plants cannot survive. Next is sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is used as a potting mixture. Whenever you are cultivating any plant inside your house, जो लोग खासकर घर पे इंडोर प्लांट्स ग्रो करते हैं, pure soil is not good for them, because if you are putting too much water in pure soil, the plant parts will rot. So sphagnum moss is a moss which is very much used in potting mixture, because this moss is having good water holding capacity. So if you are going somewhere keeping your plants alone in the home, even if you are not watering for a few days, sphagnum moss can maintain retained amount of water for a few days, so plants will not die. It is also used for air layering. Air layering means if you are going for aeroponic, or you want to grow what I can say, plants in a soil-less culture. In that case, this can be used. It is also ecological indicator that can indicate pollution. It can indicate moist and wet weather also. Because if the weather is not moist and wet, bryophyte cannot grow. Some bryophytes, as I told you, for example, Melicopharia elongata. This is the bryophyte which indicate presence of copper, and sphagnum indicate acidic soil condition. So they kind of prevent soil erosion. Why? Because the rhizoids and the gametophytes of bryophytes hold the soil particles together. So even if there is rainfall, if the upper part of soil is covered by the gametophytic part or sporophytic part of the plant, the soil cannot be washed away, so soil erosion can be prevented. Anthocerus is a special type of bryophyte. It can fix the nitrogen, and it can also enrich the nutrient of soil. That means inside soil, the nitrogen content can be increased if Anthocerus is growing in that area. They are very attractive. So if you go and see into the different landscape designing, let me tell you, as a biologist, you can choose the profession of horticulturist, and horticulturists often go for landscape design. Big hotels and like government offices and everywhere, you must have seen beautiful gardens which are having specialized type of plant decorated in a specific manner. So during those landscape decoration, mosses can be used very efficiently. If you want to send some fruit or biological material via courier, many a time, to retain the moisture, the mosses can be used. They are very good absorber of the water. So if you are putting these things inside the coat of mosses, the moisture will be retained. Even if you can see, if you are buying orchid, many a times in the bouquet, they give a green color substance at the base. That is nothing but the moss. This piece of moss will retain moisture, which will not allow the flowers of orchid to wilt. It is peat moss is a very good fuel that I told you. It may not be a very good quality, but it is a cheap source of fuel. Sphagnum moss is used for production of absorbent bandages, because if you don't have any bandage available, you can use them because they have antiseptic properties too. Marcantia can be used for treatment of pulmonary tuberculosis. Polytrichum can be used for removal of kidney stones. So if you go into the hilly regions and the moist areas, people will tell you about 1,000 different application of mosses. And these mosses application, they identify by traditional use of them. And some of them are such traditional diseases, the medicine for kidney stones and all. So that is how actually moss can be used by us. So with this, we are done with bryophytes. The session is open for discussion. Any doubt? Anyone? Yes, beta.
Ma'am, there is a structure rhizoid in this figure. Then, ma'am, why it is differentiated from roots?
Because roots are having various types of cells, beta, I told you. Rhizoids are having same cell, that is parenchyma. So externally they may be different, but internally they are same. And if you talk about rhizoid, let me tell you, rhizoids are not visible because they are embedded in the soil. If this is the structure of the bryophyte, rhizoids are located beneath this, like this, at the back side of the gametophyte. Or if gametophytes are having leaf-like structures like this, you cannot see the root of plants also because they are beneath the water, beneath the soil. So these are rhizoid. Rhizoid means root-like.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other doubt, anyone? Very valid question, beta. Any other doubts, anyone?
No, ma'am.
So can we consider that we completed bryophyte successfully?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You want me to share the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
So I will give it,
Yes, ma'am.
sir, he will circulate to you.